I love how, like, just a couple months ago or whatever, I, like, was, like, sad about the fact that my hair had been, like, slightly trimmed and it looked so short, but now it looks, like, really long. That's curly hair. Also, please ignore the fact that my microphone's right here. It's just there. I have written and rewritten this script over and over again in so many different forms, each attempt ending up in frustration as I fail to put into words my rather complex and sort of unpopular thoughts concerning the wonderful character that is Severus Snape. My first video about Snape, surprisingly, had decent feedback, and I think that was due to the fact that everyone watching was pretty darn aware that I love Snape, that he was one of my favorite characters, and that I was simply playing devil's advocate in a sense. All that said, I wasn't really satisfied and felt I could do more, and a fire was lit within me to do more and make another video after I got a really awesome comment from Maya Danny, whose Twitch channel I will link down below, that was both detailed and kindly written. Not something you see very often on the internet. However, as I said, I never really liked how I was writing my perspective. It always seemed to be like harsh or ignorant, philosophical, whiny, too detailed, not detailed enough, just not good. I even got to the point of recording a video, editing it fully, and uploading it, just not publishing it, and scrapping it. Because I kept looking at it and I kept having to edit it and add title cards to explain certain things. It was boring and philosophical and super long and blah 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 blah. And after a certain point I was like, forget it. If people want to know more about my thoughts on the whole Snape situation, because I apparently can't figure out what it is that bothers me anyway, just read my response to Maya's comment. That was until I watched a certain video. If you don't know who the Super Carlin brothers are, you need to know who they are. If you like my videos, you'll definitely like theirs. But they had a video recently that was looking at the correlation between Harry and his friends to James and his friends and people he bullied. Watch the video, it makes sense, super cool. In fact, click here, like pause this video and click here and watch it before you watch this video, because I'm going to talk about the Snape-Luna correlation towards the end. Now I should clarify that this video is not based on that video. It was just that I was watching it and finally it clicked what my problem was with Snape and how I wanted to go about it. So it was more so just a really big inspiration. So what is my issue with Snape? Well, it's not actually an issue as much as something that I've noticed for years and want to give some perspective on. As you saw, the title of the video is Please Stop Glorifying Snape. To which you might be thinking, what? He's a great character. I agree. My problem is that sometimes people over-glorify Snape because of his love for Lily and his traumatic past. Don't worry, I'm going to clarify what I mean by love in air quotes. But before we even jump to all the craziness, I want to remind you all that this is just my sort of opinion and perspective on a fictional characters. I shouldn't have to clarify that, but it's the internet, and you know the internet, people don't agree with you 100% and all of a sudden you're insensitive and offensive, whatever. So I said Snape loved Lily with obvious air quotes. Why? Well, sure, he loves her, but it's kind of disordered. And what I mean by that is Snape had a harsh early childhood, right? And he was also severely bullied in school. Suffice it to say, he was not properly shown or taught what true love in the platonic or romantic sense really means. Lily showed him platonic love as a decent human being should, but that was all he had. It is my personal, somewhat uneducated psychological theory that due to Snape's harsh life and lack of ordered love in his life, he latched onto what Lily was giving him. He didn't love Lily in the true love sense way of like how, you fall in love with your eventual spouse. Not in that way. He loved the idea of her. He loved the idea of someone actually caring about him and his abilities and his talents. It was more than him just wanting a caring friendship. It was disordered. It was an obsession. That, I think, is a far more worthy and tragic story to read. If you refuse to view it as such, okay, whatever. But this is ultimately what I think is a more honest look at the situation of what's going on in Snape's heart. And personally just makes me love the complexity of his character even more. Just when you thought you couldn't like one of your favorite characters anymore, you do. Now let's talk about James versus Severus. And I don't mean versus in the sense of pitting them against one another to see who the winner is, which one's better. No, no, no. I mean simply comparing and contrasting them to keep them on level ground so that neither gets put on a pedestal and neither is shoved into the dirt. The problem that I see and that you might see is that people over-glorify the good that Snape has done and then only label James by his bullying. Neither of which are good things to label a person on. I mean, you shouldn't label them at all. Yeah. So, James Potter. It would be completely ignorant to look at this character and not talk about his bad deeds and his bullying of Snape. James took advantage of his good looks, his wealth, and his talents to put down someone who was just a little bit different. The ignorance comes when people only look at that side of James and don't acknowledge the immense change that he must have gone through. Yes, James was a bully. We know he changed. We don't know the circumstances and all the details of what that was or how it came about, but what we do know is that it must have been significant. I mean, people used to just talk about him like, oh yeah, he's a talented young boy, good job. But as he grew in age and maturity, people start to seem to talk about his good character and morals and bravery. I mean, obviously Gryffindor or whatever. And Lily, the same Lily who saw through all of his original crap and bullying and hated him, falls in love with him and marries him and has a son with him. Something must have changed. Yes, admonish him for his bullying, but yes, be like, hey, good job, you changed. More people should do that. So just as it is ignorant to ignore his wrongdoings, it is also shameful to not acknowledge the change he clearly went through. Now it's time for Severus Snape. Whether you read the books or just saw the movies, when you find out about Snape's whole past, you're taken for a tailspin. Up until that point, we're all led to believe, yeah, he's just a cold-hearted monster who hates everyone. But then we learn about his rough early childhood, his backstory, his traumatic past of being bullied by James. And also the woman who was, in fact, the only person to ever show him what it means to love someone, platonically, was killed by the person that he followed. Whether you claim it's true love or an obsession that stems from a traumatic past, it's heartbreaking nonetheless. However, just as we cannot only look at James's past, we cannot only look at Snape's past either. So, sure, Snape did some good things. He was an informant to Dumbledore about the Dark Lord and his servants. He vowed to protect Harry and bullied him and his friends. His bullying may not have been as torturous as what James did to him, but he was still bullying. And what really irks me is that he was an adult. He's a professor. James knew better. So did Snape. Snape definitely knew better too. Of course, neither of these characters should be labeled by a single trait or action, right? Of course not. They're both characters who have done good things and have done bad things. Doesn't, like, Sirius talk about good and bad? Like, everyone has it. Unless you're Voldemort, who's conceived out of the love potion and has no ability to love. Or unless you're Umbridge. That woman's just, no. Point is, they're human characters. They're good and bad within them. You kind of see what I'm saying, sort of? I'm not saying you shouldn't reprimand James's bullying. I'm saying don't reprimand James and then not reprimand Snape. They both bullied and both deserve to be punished. I'm also saying don't ignore Snape's traumatic past. What I am saying is that does not justify bullying. A traumatic past does not mean you have the right to be mean to other people. Now to talk about Severus and Luna. Where am I going with this? Well, if you watched the video that I told you to watch from the Super Carlin brothers, you already know where I'm going with this. Luna has a sad early childhood, right? I mean, her dad's a little, and she watches her mother die right before her eyes. And then when she goes to school, she's bullied because of how weird her father is and because of how weird she is. Sound like anyone? Yeah. What's different is how Luna somehow overcomes all of this. Even before Jenny, Harry, and the others reach out to her, she seems to handle it pretty well. Luna is just one example of how one can overcome the bullying in their life and the hard things in their life. Are hers and Snape's situation exactly the same? No, but would you ever talk about two people that drowned, one in the ocean and one in 3 inches of water, and say, oh, well, that was worse because it was the ocean? No, you would say they both drowned. They were both bullied. But moving on to my next point, Lily knew Severus for a long time and always tried to be his friend. She was his friend. Likewise, Jenny stood up for Luna. The difference? Despite Snape indeed having that support system in Lily, something he had never really known before, he doesn't really take full advantage of it. He just couldn't overcome the bullying for whatever reason. Thus, in the end, Lily exhausted everything and just had to move on since he was not being receptive to it after all that time. I know a lot of you just said always. Luna, however, seemed to be very open to the idea of other people's kindness and let them in. Again, not 100% the same, but the principle is, I think, somewhat similar, and Luna is an example of taking that hard step to slowly open up to others and let them come into your life and not let the bullying define you. I am in no way undercutting what Snape went through. Heckin' no. Heckin' traumatic. I am, however, giving an example of what we all wish he would have done. I mean, he had the ability, he's caring, he's smart, he's talented, he's ambitious. He had the same ability as Luna to overcome that bullying. Why? Because he's a human, and we all have that ability to stand up and say, you know what? I'm not gonna let people label me as a victim. I'm not a victim. I was hurt, but now I'm a victor because I can overcome it. I have overcome it, and Snape did overcome it, but he let himself be labeled as a victim. He was victimized. He was a victor. He just wouldn't embrace it. I know, I'm sure there's people out there that are gonna be like, what do you know about bullying? Do you know my whole life? I don't think so. So what has all this rambling led to? Well look, obviously I love Snape, and I hate that James bullied him. But can we please stop putting Snape on a pedestal? No one deserves to be there. I used to love that phrase, always too, but once I had a good look at it and saw what was underneath, I stopped looking at it as some romantic gesture or phrase, but rather as a sign of an obsession he couldn't let go of. One that influenced his bullying over Harry, because Harry was in fact the product of a love between the man that hurt him and the woman he was obsessed with. I don't mean obsessed in a stalker way. Pretty sure I've made that clear at this point, but just in case. A crazy conflict for sure, but not one that warrants glorifying and romanticizing. What it does deserve is respectful mourning, empathy, and to serve as a lesson to us all to look more at the people around us and show better love and care for them. That kind of ended on a somber note. Didn't mean for that to happen. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe. I post videos every Wednesday and Saturday, but if you would like more from the Geek Apprentice channel, such as my patron Halo Justin, then check out patreon.com/thegeekapprentice. Look at the tiers, see if there's anything that interests you, like early access to videos, Q&A, Discord, you know, whatever. But if not, that's okay. That's all for today. Thank you for watching.